Salutations, I'm Zer0, and today we've got a new challenge build for you guys. So today we're going to be covering the Unforgiven. This little pistol is a pearlescent with a special effect of plus 75% critical hit damage. Yeah, it's not very much, but the Unforgiven has been really fun to play with. It has a relatively high base damage for it being a single projectile weapon, not so much, but for it being a revolver overall, it's a pretty respectable base damage there. Now, there are a couple other pistols that people tend to compare this thing to. One of them being the Maggie. The Maggie tends to be the one that's like everybody's like best in slot in comparison to the Unforgiven, or just better than the Unforgiven. I'm just like, not from my experience. I actually found better usage from the Unforgiven than I have the Maggie on Zer0 here. Which sounds ridiculous, right? But the core difference is the fire rate. Now, with the Maggie, you're needing to load a whole bunch of projectiles into a critical hit spot to out DPS the Unforgiven, while with the Unforgiven, you land one shot into that crit spot, and you're dealing about as much damage as the Maggie was going to do, just with one projectile. That's quite a bit. Now, with that in mind, the Maggie needs to land a bunch of projectiles in the crit to be competitive with the Unforgiven. When it comes to close range. So it may have a advantage when it's close range to landing crits, but it's a lot more difficult to land a group of projectiles even at close range than it is to land one projectile at close range with the Unforgiven. And so the Unforgiven definitely works better in close counters. Now, the Unforgiven, well, all weapons have a built-in projectile spread. Whether or not they have multiple projectiles, they all have projectile spread. And in the Unforgiven's case, that projectile spread is super annoying. How it works on single projectile weapons is the projectile can move at any point within the crosshair. So the width of the crosshair very much determines where the projectile is going to land. And if it's just anywhere it feels like, then it's anywhere it feels like, whether or not you had that freaking gun's barrel pointed directly at that target's crit spot, that bullet can just stray. It just does whatever. It makes it really annoying. But that does hinder the Unforgiven quite a bit at distance, because it's a lot more difficult to land that singular projectile at distance, especially with that spread. You could fit the entire crit spot within that crosshair when it's super small like that. When it's larger, it's kind of difficult when it's closer range, but when it comes to enemies that are far away, good luck. You're gonna have a hard time. Even while ADSing, it's a pain, because even if you have that crit spot honed in on that cursor while you're ADSing, yeah, no, it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't like you. Freddy don't like you. It's so terrible. And so the Maggie tends to do a lot better at distance, because you're firing more projectiles. You have more chance for those projectiles to land those crits that you need. If the Unforgiven isn't landing a crit in that shot, it's not competing with the Maggie any projectile that's landing a crit with that shot. So the Maggie ends up doing better at longer distance. Now, with that in mind, the Unforgiven still isn't entirely bad at long distance. It's super annoying because there's just a RNG chance that you don't land your crit. But even with that, there are ways to mitigate it. Like what I'm doing right now, if you swap and swap back, all of the things that affect your accuracy and your sway all reset. So any damage instances you've taken when you swap, all of that resets when you get attacked from, or when you shoot and then you swap. it removes the penalty from when you shot. And a lot of weapons have that when you shoot, it increases the size of that crosshair. If you swap, then it removes that issue with the crosshair. It's very helpful to know. And that does help quite a bit with the long distance. Is it enough to compensate in comparison to the Maggie? No. But it is good to allow it to be utilized in a situation like this, where I'm using it as the primary damage source, and I want it to perform well. I wish I could breathe. God dang it. Okay. It does pretty well against the... Well, it does really well against the smaller targets. With the larger targets, it does pretty well. As long as you have all of your effects applied, all of your primary effects applied, you're gonna do pretty well against these enemies. Now, with item choices, I have a couple items on here, like the grog nozzle, which people tend to not like in these kinds of videos because it's well, the freaking grog nozzle. It's commonly associated with being a required item for gaming in Borderlands 2, and that's just simply not true. If I ran a Ruby, I would get the exact same benefit from it with the lifesteal. But the fun thing with the grog nozzle here is when you get drunk. When you get drunk, you are unforgiving. This pistol rocks when you are drunk. You walk up to somebody with that drunken Unforgiven, you get up close, you shoot all those projectiles into that crit, and if you ever thought the Maggie was good, oh good lord, this thing just one-shots most things that I've shot with it, and it is awesome. Between that and the orc being a decently good way of trying to simulate that at a longer distance, with the orc effect, it's really nice to utilize it to simulate that effect at a longer distance, because you're not gonna be wanting to be drunk at a longer distance. I talked about it earlier. Then why we're utilizing the conference call for second wins, at least early in the game. We're not doing that very much later, mostly because I just got better during the run and freaking figured out how to play the build. But with the orc here, it does help quite a bit with the long distance variants of trying to grog nozzle Unforgiven nonsense. Yeah, see right here, a swap, boom, bang, bang. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, there are a couple enemies that I could see this being an issue for, enemies that are immune to crit, enemies that are immune to slag. Both of those is going to cause an issue, because you want both of those modifiers to be applied all the time. And if you don't have those modifiers, especially with the crit, you may as well just not use this weapon. Your Maggie... If you can't crit, your Maggie's just gonna out DPS this pistol, and the Maggie's not gonna do very much because that's also kind of a big crit weapon too. So, yeah, the enemies like Saturn and Slag, Centurion, Spider Ants are a pain. I hate them. They shouldn't exist. Well, Saturn is understandable, I suppose, as a boss mechanic, but at least, like, I don't know, adjust his attacks to not be near map wiping or map tracking, please. I don't want to sit behind a building for 3 minutes waiting for his rocket salvos to stop and waiting for him to start waiting for him to do his like other idle animations or whatnot to be able to shoot at him. I'm not here to sit down and wait. I'm here to shoot at something. Please let me shoot at something. With Zer0, you can get around that by just throwing Deception, but I'm not always playing Zer0. Sometimes I'm playing like Gage or Krieg. Well, Gage could get around it too with close enough, but Maya, unless you have another enemy there, you're not getting around that with Maya. You just either have to face tank it, or you wait for the intermediate cycles, which is still really annoying in my opinion. So to get on to a little bit more of an important topic, since we're 10 minutes in, I don't need to be ranting and rambling about build anymore. Y'all probably understand how this works, understand the weapon by now. And for the people that are still watching, most of y'all probably know more about it than I do. So we're going to talk about something a little bit more important from here. Hellfire released a video yesterday, or not yesterday as of posting this, but yesterday as of me writing the script. The terms of service and privacy policy changes. The terms of service and privacy policy of Take-Two Interactive as of February 28th, 2025. They are very invasive. Now, I'm not going to talk about the actual contents very much. Go watch Hellfire's video if you want to talk about that. Or if you want to hear about somebody talking about the specifics. But most of you probably have already watched it. What I'm going to talk about is a couple things that directly affect me and my capability to play these games. When it comes to their interest in a anti-cheat system, I brought it up as an issue initially because they brought up a lot of data collection things and a lot of verbiage from their modding section in their policy that very much implies that they're going to have an anti-cheat. And an anti-cheat that has access to that data would be a kernel-level anti-cheat. They did the same thing with GTA 5. They implemented BattleEye, which is a kernel-level anti-cheat that is specifically targeted a lot of the times towards like Linux players. Now, there is a simple option to just turn off the auto-ban Linux players, but they have an auto-ban Linux players toggle to begin with. You're just gonna ban a whole section of your community from playing the game all of a sudden, despite it saying on Steam that it's Linux compatible and you put it there? Really? You want to do that? Okay, sure. People don't buy GTA. Don't buy these games because there's people who really care about their privacy that can't play the game because of this. Or simply people that don't like Windows that can't play because of this. If you look at the way that Windows is going right now, Windows is probably the worst operating system to be using at the moment. Well, I guess the worst would still be Apple. But it's still really difficult to justify utilizing Windows right now because of the amount of stuff that they are blatantly and openly adding as spyware to your device that they didn't have before. There are several privacy and security institutions that are writing and creating software that allow people to just toggle these things off, but you have to give them crazy access to your device to do that too. And so it makes it really difficult for me to be like, hey, Windows is a usable operating system. It's not. That and all the bloatware preventing you from being able to play games at an optimal ratio and incentivizing you to buy better hardware so that they can fill it with more bloatware so that you have to buy better hardware and cause an infinite retail loop. Dumbest thing on the planet. With Linux, you can simply just install what you have, and then the updates are not very bloaty, and you can just decide what's gonna be there. You're not held to by Microsoft strong-arming you into having these things on your device. It's not requirement. You can get away with not having any of these things on your device. There's plenty of things that shouldn't be on a Windows system that comes with a Windows system. There is tons and tons of adware, spyware, and malware even that comes on your device. Just by default, by having a Windows license. Why the heck are you purchasing a device that has malware built into it? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. So, no, Windows shouldn't be utilized as a primary service, in my opinion. But I'm getting way off track, and I'm ranting really hard. So let's get back to the actual focus here. So, kernel level anti-cheats, banning Linux players, and are an extreme violation of security and privacy. I know how to get around almost everything else that was everything that was listed in that TOS. I know how to get around, and there's a lot of cases where even the ones that I do know how to get around for kernel level anti-cheats, I'm not using that. That stuff was a pain to set up. Not only was it a pain to set up, it felt wrong doing it. And I'm not going to put myself through that for playing a lot of games. There are some, and depending on what kernel level anti-cheat they utilize, I'm okay with. Like, I'm okay with getting around for a online game that it may not be competitive, because I'm not playing online games to play competitive. But if it is an online-focused game, and there is a game mode that is focused for competitive play, I get it. So I am either just not going to play those games, or for the ones that I'm going to play, like Elden Ring, why the heck does Elden Ring have a kernel level anti-cheat? For Elden Ring, I'm just going to either break the anti-cheat, or it runs easy anti-cheat, so it is as simple as disable, click the disable button, and boom, it's disabled. But that doesn't give it the right to take information right away, which is what it can do. As soon as it's on the device, it can start taking information. Does it? No, not for the most part. A lot of them don't. But because it has the capability to, I find that as a huge issue. And that's my biggest thing with a lot of these terms of service and a lot of these games right now. They want to claim that they have the capability to take these things. A lot of them don't have the capability right now, but they try to strong arm it to be like, hey, we can do this and we will do this. It's like, no, I refuse. I know enough to get around most of it again, but I'm not gonna just sit by and let other people have their stuff taken. It's dumb. It's terrible, and people should read these things more, or at least look into it before playing or buying a game. Call of Duty, League of Legends, all of these Vanguard games from like Tencent. All of these competitive games, all of these have these kernel level anti-cheats that take all of your data information, and a lot of these companies openly tell you that they sell it to other people. They sell it to other commercial businesses. Whether they are direct business partners for other things or not, it still applies as commercial business, and they sell it. These kernel level anti-cheats can collect stuff, like if you've ever put your social security number on the internet, or like on your device at all, if you've ever utilized your banking information, your credit card, your debit card on your computer, it includes all of these things. Now, for a bigger and a more intuitive breakdown of all of this stuff, go watch Hellfire's video for the ones that may have it, that may have not, that have gotten this far in the video. Most of you probably already have, seeing as we are 19 minutes in now. But this is a huge issue for me, and I'm not signing that terms of service or privacy policy until I know exactly how they plan on implementing it in the future. If it ends up being a kernel level anti-cheat, I'm not playing Borderlands anymore. That's just a fact. It sucks, but if they go through and retroactively add an anti-cheat, it's the dumbest thing on the planet, and somebody should freaking sue them, in my opinion. But that's just an opinion, and there's no backing that I'm stating here. So do keep that in mind. But this all sucks. This whole thing sucks. and I'm going to be going... I started this $5 Friday indie game series where I'm going to be covering a lot of games that I find for $5 or less, and that's probably going to turn into the main video source for a while if this becomes an issue in the Borderlands games. Now, I highly doubt they are going to actually introduce a kernel-level anti-cheat to the prior games, but if they do it through Shift, then it's going to happen. If they don't, then I highly doubt they're going to go back to Borderlands 2, which means I'm going to be stuck playing Borderlands 2. They're probably going to do it to Borderlands 3, though, because they did the same thing with GTA. They did it to GTA 5. So, there is that. That's the end of this video. I hope y'all enjoyed well, at least the first 10 minutes before I started ranting about this subject. But I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and hope y'all come back for some more. This is Zer0 to 77 signing off.